the latest news, national issues, the political scene, and conversations with prominent personalities. All these firsthand at the forefront. Good morning. I am Attorney Karen Jimeno. On the occasion of World Food Day yesterday, an annual celebration that promotes awareness of hunger and action for the future of food, Gabriela spearheaded a protest denouncing the privatization of public markets. Privatization has affected the livelihood of small vendors, retailers, porters, and local producers, and increased costs that are passed on to the consumers. Will Gabriela's call against the privatization of public markets put an end towards the implementation by the local government units? Joining us is the legal officer of the Quezon City Market Development and Administration Department, Attorney Jamelin Benguet. Good morning, Attorney Jamie.
Good morning, Attorney Karen.
So first, let's talk about the protest held yesterday by Gabriela and other groups at Litex Market. How many markets are right now for privatization?
Actually, in Quezon City, there are non-public markets up for privatization.
Meaning all markets have already been privatized?
In Quezon City, we categorize public market. The public market, under public market, we have city-owned public market, privately owned public market, talipapa, and bagsakan. So, public market per se is different from the private markets.
Okay, so for us to understand, like with the protest of Gabriela, whatever they're protesting against in terms of non-privatization, would that apply to which category of markets in Quezon City?
Actually, the protest held by Gabriela yesterday in privatizing public market does not apply to Quezon City because in Quezon City, we only have 8 public markets. Those are city-owned and we are not, none of those are up for privatization.
Okay, but when you say it's city-owned, how is it administered? And how is that different from the current setup of public markets?
City-owned public markets, these are government-owned and operated public markets in Quezon City. It is regulated by our department, Market Development and Administration Department. On the other hand, a private market is privately regulated and operated by entities that are non-government.
So when you say that there are no markets that are up for privatization in Quezon City, the government-owned public markets will remain to be. It's not going to be privatized at any point.
Yes, Attorney Karen.
And what are those markets right now in Quezon City that are publicly owned?
We have Project 4, Rojas, Galas, San Jose, RA Calalay or Frisco, Project 2, Murphy. How many is that? I think 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with the public markets, based on your observation, how are they different from the privately owned markets? Are they non-air conditioned versus air conditioned? Like, what are the differences, key differences between public and private markets?
I can say the key difference is the rental. And then, the utilities, public markets or the city-owned markets compete with private markets. We have some public markets that are recently renovated, so very clean, nice comfort rooms, tiled floors.
So those are the private markets?
No,
yung mga,
the public markets.
Public markets. So
yes.
Is that a key difference? You're saying that the public markets in Quezon City are nicer?
Not nicer, but we are, in terms of, we are competent compared to, with, or in level with the private markets.
Can you say the same thing for other cities? For example, Manila, other areas where public markets are also at the same level as private markets?
I don't think so because as we know, Quezon City is a big city, so we take care of our city-owned markets.
And would you say there's also a budget from the city to renovate and upgrade the markets?
Yes, Attorney Karen. The city allocate budgets for its rehabilitation and its maintenance.
Based on just your observation on how markets are operated, is there basis for there to be a protest against the privatization of public markets? Does it really affect the cost?
I think so because the protest was, their aim is to make sure that the rentals and the prices of the goods won't be so high. And there is a basis for them to hold the protest because the prices of the public markets or of the rents there and the goods there are really cheap compared to the private markets.
And that holds true for Quezon City.
Yes.
Like if you go to a public market, mas mura.
Yes.
Can you give us an example of the rental rates, like the difference between a public market and a private market?
In a public market, in city-owned markets, the rental rates depend on the class of the market and the stall. What do they sell? But it ranges from 100 to less than 500 pesos a month per square meter. Compared to private, we don't have exact data on how much they rent their stalls in the private market because it's within their jurisdiction.
But what would be the advantage then of having a privatized market? Because for Quezon City, you're able to upgrade it at the same level as a private market. But for other cities, what would be the advantage for the vendors and also for the consumers of having a privatized market?
I think the advantage of having a privatized market is the rate. Having a privatized market, their structures, their utilities there would be beneficial to not just the stallholders but the buyers going there. They would be pleased to visit a privatized market because it's clean and the food that they sell there, the fruits, the vegetables would be of quality.
Mm-hmm. And how would you address, for example, the issue of rents being too high and then the cost of that being passed on to the consumers?
I think because in Quezon City, we also put a reasonable price on the rents. Addressing that question is, it would affect the vendors directly because they would be the end consumer. So,
you mean they would have to pay the higher rents and then they have to pass that on
to the buyers.
To the buyers. Is there any ordinance in Quezon City that controls the rent for private markets? At least puts a cap or a limit?
None yet.
Okay, so for other cities where they don't have the same budget as Quezon City, where you have the largest LGU, so you have a lot of revenues. For other cities, do you think it makes sense to privatize the markets?
No, I don't agree with privatization of a public market because as we know, we are trying to regulate the prices of commodities in the market, not only for the stallholders but for the buyers. So they won't be loaning to people just to buy goods and to survive.
Mm-mm. So it's an issue talaga of inflation for the end consumers. And attorney, would you know if for Quezon City, this has always been the policy? Meaning to always have public markets so that there's an option for consumers to have a cheaper market to go to. Has that always been the policy of Quezon City?
Yes, that has been always since been the policy of Quezon City and has been the end goal of Mayor Joy to accommodate what the consumer needs and to make sure that they will not be buying excessive price goods in excessive prices.
Wala pa sa history ng Quezon City where markets have been privatized.
None.
And do you think if there's a change in leadership because the elections are coming up, that policy might change? Or is it a possibility that that might change?
As I look at it now, I don't think so. Because even whoever will be heading the administration of the Quezon City, the goal is to serve the people. Mm-hmm. And by not privatizing a public market, that's one of the way to make sure that the people are being served properly.
And with respect to the other policies in Quezon City, do you also allow street vendors? There are other LGUs which have aggressively done street clearing where they don't allow side vendors anymore. Is that something that the Quezon City government is also doing?
Yes. In Quezon City, we regulate street vending. We only allow them to held operations in certain locations within the city and not in places where there's really high traffic.
Mm-hmm. In terms of food safety in the public markets, does the Quezon City government also constantly regulate and inspect both the public markets and private markets?
Yes, we have inspectors going every public and private markets to make sure that the quality of the food and food safety is being assured. Also, we recently collaborated with an NGO to make sure to offer cold storage in our public markets.
And Attorney Jamie, as the administrator for markets in Quezon City, can you give us an idea how big the difference is? So for example, if I'm buying goods, vegetables, meat, in a private market versus a public market in Quezon City, how big is the price difference? Perhaps you can give us examples.
I think it would range from, there's a 20 or 10 to 20 pesos difference.
Per kilo? Or
yes.
Per kilo?
I believe so. That's how I see it.
Okay, so there's really a
big difference compared to private markets.
Thank you so much, Attorney Jamie, for giving us insights into public markets in Quezon City.
Thank you, Atty. Karen.
Up next, the Chairman Emeritus of Gabriela Women's Party, when At the Forefront, will be back. Welcome back at the Forefront. Joining us is the Chairman Emeritus of Gabriela, former Congresswoman Liza Maza. Good morning, Congresswoman Liza.
Good morning, Atty. Karen.
So let's start with the protest held yesterday by Gabriela at Litex Public Market. Yes. Why was there a protest held?
Well, there was a protest held yesterday because we were expressing our position that we are against the privatization of public markets. Because there has been, I think in the last 15 years, there has been a trend in privatizing public markets. And not only in Manila, but also very much so in the provinces. Like the Cebu market, the Iloilo market, the market in Baguio.
And this was really timed during World Food Day, which was yesterday.
Yes.
So the position of Gabriela is that privatization increases food prices actually, and threatens stability of food
exactly.
prices.
Because from our study, indeed privatization increases the rent of the stalls, and of course the increased rent will be passed on to the consumers, no? By upping the prices of what they sell there in the market.
Why did Gabriela choose Litex specifically?
Well, because we know naman that we are very much concerned of the food on the table, diba? We are the women, the mothers are the ones who usually every day we put the We are in charge of putting the food on the table. And if the prices go up, that is really our very, very big problem. That's why whenever there is an increase in prices of basic commodities, especially food, then we are really up against all this. And considering also that now in the Philippines, there's about 20 million people who are saying that they are hungry.
And Gabriela is basically a women's party list. But Makabayan Bloc then. But yes, but the advocacy is primarily for women.
Yes, primarily for women.
There's a party list right now that is also made up of vendors that's seeking to be elected and getting a seat in Congress. Do you think that Gabriela will still retain this advocacy on opposing the privatization of public markets? Should that party list also get a seat in Congress?
This other party list of
that is made up of vendors.
Well, yeah, of course, because this is also really the concern of vendors. No? So I hope that party would be able to join us in this advocacy, because it's not only the consumers but the vendors. No? And the vendors are really small retailers or small distributors of this of our daily staples like vegetables, fish. So it's really important and many of them are women, the vendors. So they are really very much affected, and not only on the end side, but also in relation to the distribution of these food items. It's the women who are there.
Congresswoman Liza, can you give us an idea how many vendors are affected by this issue on privatization?
Well, for example, I can give you, Iloilo. No? So in Iloilo, there was already a privatization of the Iloilo public market and also the Iloilo terminal market, and that affected 2,400 vendors.
200,000
yes,
vendors.
400 vendors. And of course, there are others. No? May mga kargador, mayroong mga, what do you call this, yung mga nagtitinda, di ba? So if you have a small stall, then may mga nagtitinda pa dyan. So lahat yun affected. So there are not only the 2,400, but there are thousands more.
So 2,400?
400 lang na vendors. Pero yung iba, kung may stall ka dyan, di ba, meron kang tindera. So, yung mga vendors, ito yung nag-iisa lang di ba? So, meron ka pang mga stalls na nandyan. Kasi usually, pag na-privatize, yung mga nagtitinda sa gilid, tinatanggal na yun Oo.
So, you mean, the total, for example, the Iloilo market, ang affected is 2,400
vendors.
Not 200,000.
No, 2,400 vendors. But there are thousands more na nasa paligid nung all the other kargador, and hindi pa yun
yung
included
mga
sa
other
vendors.
related livelihood. And
yes.
Iloilo, this situation you're talking about, has that market been privatized or balak pa lang?
Oo. Well, it is already underway. No? At meron ding mga nagpo-protesta doon ng mga vendors who were displaced.
And in your objective opinion, when you see markets that have been privatized, including in the provinces, do you see at least some benefits, some positive outcome? Do you see markets that are better organized, cleaner, more sanitary?
Actually, hindi rin ganun Kasi I think whatever improvement can be undertaken by the LGU.
What about LGUs that don't have enough funds?
Well, alam mo na, yung napo-privatize ngayon, yung mga markets na nasa malalaking cities. And so we can assume already that the cities have, enough funds.
They can afford it.
Yes. Hindi naman yung mga maliliit na nasa town. No? Siyempre, for the business enterprise na malaki, like corporate business, mas profitable sa kanya yung mga ma-privatize yung mga mga nasa cities na markets. Kasi doon siya kikita di ba? So, maraming pera yung mga LGUs to fund, public markets. And I think that's a service that should be undertaken. Pero ano nangyayari, there's already corporate controls. Kahit sa mga maliliit na retailers, inaano nila minomonopolize ng malalaki. For example, sa Cebu entered into joint agreement, with Megawide, and it's a 5.5 billion agreement to joint venture para sa market, So it will increase the payment of rental space by 75%. So we can imagine kung ano ang ipapass on noon doon sa mga consumers in the end.
And based on other areas where markets have been privatized, did you observe how much the increase was for the goods that were being sold? For example, yung mga gulay, mga karne, how much did the price increase for the end consumers?
Well, may mga experiential na testimony na nagsasabi, halimbawa, dati, kasi maraming factors why prices of commodities increase, di ba? Yung inflation,
yes,
on its own.
Fuel as well, that's a big impact normally.
Yung mga sakuna, di ba? Pero yung observable sa kahit walang ganon,
kahit walang external factors. Ano yung nagiging increase? So for example, let's take an example of a market after ma-privatize, gaano kalaki yung nagiging price increase?
Yun nga, yung mga sinasabi sa amin, mga piso, ganon, 150, malaki na yun para sa ordinary. Kasi yung mga pumupunta rin naman sa market, yung mga mahihirap Of course, may mayayaman din.
And when you say piso and 150, that's per kilo or per piece?
Per tali, yung mga ganon, di ba? Malaki na yon para doon sa mga mahihirap. Kasi
lalo
yung
na
mga
cumulative.
yung mayayaman naman, meron silang mga grocery supermarkets, di ba? Pero yung mga mahihirap, talagang doon sa mga public markets bumibili. So, mahirap talaga. And talaga, naapektuhan yung mga kababaihan. Maraming kababaihan na naapektuhan. So, and I think para sa akin, because I'm also an advocate of entrepreneurship sa mga kababaihan. So, kung gano'n, na mga maliliit na business na katulad niyan, magtitinda lang ng mga gulay na parang mga bila-bilao, or meron lang sang stalls. Tapos ganun pa na-atake yung livelihood nila because of this. So yung ating gustong development para sa mga kababaihan na nagsisikap magnegosyo kahit maliit lang muna, para mapalaki ito. Na-stifle agad sila, na mapatay sila agad because of these monopolies.
And Congressman Liza, another option that sells cheap commodities is kadiwa. Is kadiwa a facility that can be made available in all areas? Have you looked into that so that there's always an option for small businesses and also consumers?
Well, because kadiwa is a showcase. It is more of a political showcase, also given its history ng panahon ni Marcos Sr. na gusto niya magpakita na you can buy cheap things dito sa kadiwa, pero limited 'yon. At saka hindi 'yon para sa lahat, At hindi 'yon available sa maraming lugar. Like ngayon, mas lalo na ngayon na talagang ginagamit siya for propaganda ng mga nakaupo, 'di ba? So hindi those are not solution to the problem. Ang importante talaga, solusyonan yung ba't tumataas yung presyo ng mga bilihin, 'di ba? Hindi yung mag-showcase ka lang na, dito makakabili ka ng 28 pesos na bigas with a Romualdez sign on it, di ba?
And considering that you're saying that this requires a permanent solution or addressing the root causes of inflation, do you think that the DTI as a government agency should have a role to play in this, and then in terms of implementation, the DILG in coordination with local government units?
Well, again, there are many reasons. Well, of course, in relation to the private market, of course, it should be a policy like narinig ko kanina yung Quezon City, that their aim is really to, not to privatize, but to have more public markets. And I think that is a good sign, no? And I think that should be emulated by the LGU, at the ground level, where they are really, the kumbaga frontliners when it concerns with delivering cheap food to the people. So I think that that should be undertaken. Tanggalin na nga yung mga privatization ng markets para hindi na makadagdag pa sa presyo. And then of course, kung ba tumataas ang presyo, marami ng dahilan. Nandyan yung was it yesterday or today that there was a big oil price increase?
Yes.
And of course, that will
that was
really,
Tuesday.
That will really up the prices of basic commodities and utilities. And then there is another solution there, no? Our proposal there as Makabayan is to remove the VAT and the excise tax on oil para naman hindi siya pumatong pa. Given the situation, kung talagang mahal ang bili natin dyan doon sa Middle East because of the war and everything, so meron tayong nagagawa.
And Congresswoman Liza, what type of legal remedies are you considering? Are you thinking of going to the courts to stop the privatization of markets, of public markets?
Actually, that is in our mind, but also in a larger scale, we are also really against privatization, because privatization only, only gives profit to the rich corporations, especially it can go to the multinational, foreign companies. And also it is a burden to the consumers, because of the tendency is for the prices of these goods and these commodities and utilities to go up. So as a matter of principle, we are against globalization. We are against globalization and privatization. So
what alternative do you think would be a good solution? One, to improve the conditions of the markets, and also to keep prices low.
Well, I think that the LGUs have enough funds to improve their services. They can put their budget. They can allocate enough budget for that. Sa halip na mga bongga-bongga, no? Itong mas kailangan ng bayan, ito yung kanilang mas unahin. And then of course, i-address natin yung maraming dahilan kung bakit mataas ang presyo ng mga bilihin.
And Congresswoman Liza, you will be running for Senate in the 2025 elections as part of the Makabayan bloc.
Yes, as part of the Makabayan slate. Yeah.
And will you be opposing public market privatization as part of your agenda and platform? But before you answer that question, let's have a short break. At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. Congresswoman Liza, you're running for Senate in 2025 as a member of the Makabayan bloc. Is opposing the privatization of public markets part of your platform when you become senator, or if you become senator?
Yes. Well, definitely, that's one of our in the agenda of Makabayan is to really stop privatization of public services.
So not just public markets, all types of public services.
Yes.
You're against privatization.
Well, just I think 2 weeks ago, I was in contact with the Consumers Union of the Philippines, who is doing a lot of good work regarding opposing the privatization of the NAIA. And I am also part of that advocacy. We are against the privatization of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport.
Well, it's already been
It has been privatized, yes, last September.
Yes,
yeah.
It has been turned over
Yes,
already.
yes.
So,
Yes.
what type of recourse are you looking at?
So we are looking at going to the Supreme Court. No?
question the privatization of
NAIA. We believe that it is a vital, sensitive infrastructure. It has national interest in it, and also our national security can be jeopardized. So that's why we are opposing it. And aside, of course, from it will up everything.
Increase the prices.
The terminal fee will be increased from 250 to 390, and then the international international fee will be increased from 500 to 950.
When do you intend to file a case in the Supreme Court?
We are still discussing that, and I think we will be doing that with the Consumer Association. So
you are already working with a group in terms of preparing a petition to be filed in the Supreme Court. And the main issue there would be questioning the validity of the privatization of NAIA.
Yes.
And other sectors that you're looking at in terms of opposing privatization, are there any other sectors?
Well, of course, we have always been opposed to... Yes. We have always been opposed to oil deregulation law. Because again...
oil deregulation.
Oil deregulation law, the regulation of our utilities like water. We are not in favor of privatizing, basic utilities like water, transportation, markets.
What about IPIRA, the Electricity Reform Act, where there was also privatization?
Yes.
Are you also opposing that? Because now it's been deregulated and a lot of our power plants are privately owned.
Yes, exactly. So the effect of this privatization is really to add burden to the consumers of these utilities and these products. So it is not doing, and the service really is not really that good also. So talo yung consumers dito sa privatization na ito
But Congresswoman Liza, do you think that the government is competent but also properly manned in case all of these sectors are again returned to public services in terms of not allowing privatization?
Well, of course, kailangan talaga ayusin natin yung gobyerno, di ba? Kasi, siyempre, nandiyan na yung corruption again, and then yung mismanagement, etc., etc. But that should not be the reason why we should make these industries private. Ibang usapin yun, no? Ang kailangan talaga, we should hold accountable yung mga plunderers, yung mga corrupt, yung mga ganon, para masolusyonan yung problema doon sa gobyerno.
And Congresswoman Liza, you were also appointed under the previous administration, I think by former President Duterte, in the National Anti-Poverty Commission. You stayed for 2 years?
Yeah.
Why did you leave after 2 years?
Well, mahabang istorya, but one of the main reasons is that during that time, remember, President Duterte was promising peace, the continuance of the peace talks, and he was saying that, this peace talks can proceed to the next part, the socioeconomic reforms, and then the political reforms. And then, as someone who is in charge with poverty, that was really my issue, that these talks continue so that finally the roots of poverty in the Philippines will be addressed, because they are going to talk about it. So, but when it was when the talks were dropped, were stopped. So I said, there is no reason anymore to stay here, because I was really, hoping that this will go on, and the root causes of poverty will be, discussed and talked about and things like this. But also the other reason is that I was really also repressed. During the time, if you remember, there was a warrant of arrest issued against me while I was still sitting as cabinet member being the lead convener of National Anti-Poverty Commission. And so
The warrant of arrest
was issued.
was that in relation to the red tagging of the Makabayan block, or was there what case was that?
It was a case of 2007, the case of the Batasan 6. I don't know if you still remember this, but there was the case of the Batasan 6, where 6 progressive congresspersons were charged with rebellion. And we had to stay in Batasan.
This was under which president?
It was during the time of President Arroyo. So, and then all the cases were dismissed. The rebellion case, and there were also murder, etc. But there was one case that they left open. And so that was used. It was a murder case. But of course, it was a fabricated case. And so, but then that case was also, and there was a warrant of arrest issued against me while I was in the NAPSI. So, and I said, how can I perform my duties if, these fabricated cases are still, being revived against me as political harassment?
Who do you blame as politically harassing you or reviving that case?
Of course, the Duterte administration itself. No?
Even if you were heading NAPSI, do you think they were operating against you?
Oh,
because
yes.
you were an appointee of President Duterte.
Oh, yes, but things got crazier and crazier. And so that happened. And of course, there are really, like extreme right, the military, who were, I think they engineered the establishment of the NTFL Cup later on, who were behind all this red tagging and all this revival of cases, or filing fabricated cases against activists.
And that's the reason you
left. And
that's
another reason. And then another reason, the third reason, is that there was already the return of the ERAP and Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, forces.
And what was your issue with the
my
return
issue
of
is,
those people?
It was for the people to know that the promise of Duterte at the time, which is change, is not anymore possible with the return of the old forces.
But when you say there were a return of the old forces from ERAP and Arroyo
and the Marcoses
and the Marcoses, they were in the form of what? Like people being able to influence policies in the government, or people being appointed in government?
Yes, people being appointed in government, people of Arroyo and Estrada and Marcos who are being, reinstated. So how can there be change in that, no? So it was futile. It was a position that was untenable, given the reason why I was there and why I accepted the position when it was offered to me.
Well, right now, we have another Marcos as a president, President Bongbong Marcos Jr. Do you see a problem with the people that are being appointed now? Do you see this also as a return of the Marcos forces, but also forces from prior administrations?
Oh, yes, yes. Well, of course, the big return is the return of the Marcoses, and of course, they appointed, the people they know before, the old oligarchs of his father's administration, and the new ones. So it's the worst. I'm always saying now that it's the worst political climate that we have right now. I mean, in my more than 40 years as an activist, we can just also see how political dynasty has went from bad to worse, diba?
And as someone that's running for Senate, what type of changes do you want to introduce in the government?
Well, of course, we have already mentioned this deregulation and privatization policy, and also the liberalization policy. That has, these are economic policies that has already been proven as bankrupt. They did not fulfill the promise that they were saying when it was being, propagated that it will, decrease the prices of commodities, that will, because of there is competition and all this, BS. So I think that we know already that we have to, get away from these policies. And what we want is, for example, in relation to how do we solve the economic problem in our country. So we have always been saying this, and we are saying now that let's try this. We should have a genuine land reform program. And what is this? This is giving land to the farmers, subsidizing them so that they can develop, their land. Para hindi, kasi yung mga land reform natin, bogus eh. Ibibigay ko doon sa farmer, yung titulo, pero hindi naman siya bibigyan ng suporta. So nagkakautang-utang siya hanggang ibenta na niya yung kanyang lupa. So talagang this farmer ended, more destitute than before. So yun, and then of course yung national industrialization, then it is high time that we have we develop our own industrialists. Kaya ngayon sabi ko kanina, may hope ako doon sa kababaihan. Sa nakikita ko, napakataas ng entrepreneurial spirit ng mga kababaihan. They take care of their money. And I want to see a future where the women are captains of industry. Yung ating Filipino women, na siyang humahawak talaga sa ating mga Filipino industries.
And you were in Congress for 3 terms, a total of 9 years.
Yes.
What type of bills were you able to pass before
that
tried to push for your advocacies?
Well, because I was with Gabriela, sa bayan muna, of course I was a leader of Gabriela, because there are 2 Gabrielas. There is the Gabriela Women's Alliance, and there is the Gabriela Women's Party. I was a leader of Gabriela Women's Alliance before I became a Gabriela Women's Party representative. And these 2 are different entities. No? But then, the first run was with Bayan Muna. I was 3 of us, Ka Satur, me, and Ka Bel, Crispin Beltran. And as a women representative, one of the first bills that I filed was the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act.
Which became into a law.
It became a law.
So that was very successful.
Yes. It became a law, and I was really very passionate about this because in Gabriela we encountered many victims of trafficking, especially sex trafficking. So I was happy with that. Although now we are still pushing for amendments to cover many other aspects of trafficking. Anyway. So another one that I pushed was the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children Act.
Okay, yes, that's what also a very successful bill that became into a law and is able to help a lot of people.
So because it was filed before ahead, it was Congresswoman Angara who filed it before me because she was nauna na. So I co-sponsored it. And we were working, both working very hard together to pass this. So that's another one that was passed. And the Magna Carta for women.
And what about economic bills, economic-related bills? Like for now in Senate, it sounds like you have a very clear vision and stand that you are against privatization, you are against deregulation. So what bills do you have in mind that you can potentially file in Senate?
Well, another one is I sponsored when I was there the anti-contractualization bill.
Anti-contractualization.
Yes, because this is again very prevalent, especially among women. And so there should be a clear policy regarding contractualization. And for that matter, one reason also I accepted the position in NAPSI is because Duterte promised an end to contractualization, if you remember that. But then, of course, again, he did not fulfill his promise. But that is one agenda also that I've been pushing since the very start.
So right now, Congresswoman Liza, if you become successful in going to Senate, in a few words, what alternative will you offer when it comes to public markets? Let's go back to that. If you're opposed to privatization, concretely, how can you improve the state of our public markets and then make sure that also we reduce the prices or keep them low?
Well, Of course, it is the measure that I would propose is to be able to develop public markets, even expand public markets, support public markets, and stop the privatization of public markets. So that's one in relation to public markets. And I think there's enough funds for that, funds coming from the LGU themselves, and they can fund it. And then, of course, in relation to what's inside the market, so there are many proposals that we have. So as I've said, the twin proposals, the economic proposals, will really make our economy in the path of development. That will increase our GDP because we are developing our agriculture and we are developing our manufacturing sector. We are industrializing. No? But we are industrializing pabor sa atin, hindi pabor sa dayuhan.
So, yes or no, are you in favor of importation of consumer goods and food?
Well, as it is happening now, no. I am more of developing our own, our own like rice and not import rice. No?
Okay, thank you so much, Congresswoman
Thank
Liza.
you,
And good
Attorney.
luck with the upcoming elections.
Thank you.
The privatization of public markets is a contentious issue for market vendors because of the impact on their cost of doing business. Without any support from the LGUs, small business owners have no recourse but to pass on the additional cost to consumers. Apart from doing cost-benefit analysis of public market privatization, it is imperative that LGUs must conduct public consultation and not decide unilaterally for market vendors. Be insightful of the news and always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for meaningful conversations that would help you form an objective personal opinion. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us. Thank you.